So we're going to look at Hot in 3 different ways. First, we'll look at how it connects back to the Darling music video and also the Face the Sun promotions. Second, we'll look at the images and themes that show up in the lyrics and music video of Hot itself. And finally, we'll look at how it connects to the ideas of Face the Sun as a whole. So obviously, before each section, you should rewatch the music video. In fact, before this first section right now, please go rewatch Darling, the jacket behind the scenes, and then rewatch the Hot music video. Go ahead, I'll wait. The music video opens with Wanu running through the desert, which might immediately remind us of the group shots in Path, but it also reminds us of Wanu's trailer, where he is once again alone in the desert, although there's some important differences. For instance, nothing is blocking him and he's able to run at full speed, whereas in his trailer, he had to slowly walk past this barrier. Also, we see that it is bright daylight with the sun up ahead as opposed to clear sunset in his trailer. The lyrics and scene in Wanu's verse also connect back to his trailer. We see him in the desert once again. It's interesting the difference of cars. We've got this sort of vintage car in the trailer, but then in the music video, we've got all these off-road vehicles, things that can make their own path. We also see Wanu with one red eye, which reminds me of the shot of the sun in his eye that we saw in the Darling music video. There's a lot of imagery from the Darling music video that gets repeated. For instance, the scene with the red background reminds me of the many times we saw clocks in the Darling music video, and the compass shows up again, although in a very different way. We even have a cracked mirror in the Hot music video, just like we had messed up and broken mirrors in the Darling. Images of the sun in the background, as well as members physically holding the sun or a light, are other ways that Darling is connected. The lyrics at the start of the bridge remind me of the Path Instagram post, and Junghan's costume here is really clever because not only is it a reference to him as an angel, but notice that he is a fallen angel. So reminding us of the idea of descent or falling that we see at the end of the Darling music video. And at this point, he has already descended into reality. He is a fallen angel. He throws down his wings in rejection of where he was before. Starting in Darling, and then in their individual trailers and in the shadow photo shoot, we see them confronting their shadows, their inner darkness and fears. In Hot, however, when they confront their shadows, those shadows vanish. We see this several times in the lyrics. In particular here, if the world is one bright color, then that means there is no shadow. Even the words in the background reference the promos, and my favorite is this part, which perfectly shows the transition to Hot, going from Darling to Daring. So before we talk about the new images and themes that show up in Hot, you should watch the music video again. In fact, go watch another couple of videos, then watch Hot again, and then come on back here. Darling and the Face the Sun promos gave us a lot of clues and subtle hints about what was going on. But Hot is not subtle. Hot is a sledgehammer of symbolism. The most obvious imagery is that of fire, which connects both to their idea of facing the sun, meaning confronting and burning away their fears, but also the idea that their ambition is burning hot. And the fire images show up in so many different ways. Like, it's everywhere in the video. You just can't miss it. The other most obvious piece of imagery is that of weapons. We see Theate with knives, we see bullets, we see members aiming and shooting, and we see guns in a number of different ways. Other significant symbols that show up are the motorcycles and off-road vehicles, the property damage. Several members are up very high. We see that S-Scoops is wounded, Hoshi is dancing with death, and my personal favorite, the flipping coin. The coin is a symbol of risk and taking a chance, both because you don't know which side it's going to land on, but also because flipping it is an action that once you've done it, you cannot take back. And the coin itself tells us that it's a symbol of risk through the words on the back. And that's what all this imagery is trying to tell us. The fire, the guns, the coin, and everything else are all symbols of risk. It matches up with the lyrics where 17 is trying to tell us they are ready to risk it all to follow their burning ambition. Before we talk about how Hot connects to the rest of the album, you might want to re-listen to Face the Sun or look up some lyrics and then watch the Hot music video again and see what you notice. One of the things that's so satisfying about Face the Sun is how cohesive it is as an album. Each song has its own individual sound, which adds a lot of variety, but the themes and ideas are repeated throughout. And this is done very intentionally. And if we take the essay as a metaphor, then Hot is the thesis. It is the statement the album is trying to make, and all of the other songs connect to it. So let's briefly look at each track on the album and how it connects to Hot, but also how it makes a statement on its own. First, of course, is Darling, and we've already talked some about how Hot and Darling are connected. I will also mention that there's a number of places in the lyrics that mention the sun specifically. 'Cause I know that our love was hotter than the sun. With me under the sun, I know that you're my one. We should think of Darling as 17 before they face their fears and were able to declare their ambitions, as they do in Hot. 17 has said that Darling is just a simple love song to their fans, and certainly it is that, but I can't help but wonder, with some of these melancholy lyrics, if it's a little bit about their feelings towards each other when they think about not having each other as a group. I don't wanna let you go. I can think of being alone. What am I supposed to do? I gotta let you know you got my heart like it's yours. Don't wanna say goodbye. We've talked a lot about Hot already, so I just want to focus on this one moment in the music video. Mingyu is aiming at and literally shoots through their fears, and then his bullet goes and ignites the sun, and then we get the chorus with the lyrics, "Face the sun, set it on fire." That's the whole thesis statement right there. Confront your fears and move forward to follow your dreams and ambitions. So let's look at how that thesis plays out in the other songs. Don Quixote connects to the theme of risk that we saw in Hot. The lyrics talk about being willing to risk everything to follow your dreams, and being able to do so because you've already faced your fears and you've learned to know yourself really well. The song also adds an added layer because the literary reference and the lyrics themselves talk about rejecting others' opinions and not letting other people's judgments of you get in the way of pursuing what you want. Having Don Quixote come right after Hot deepens our sense of 17's confidence and prepares us for an even more ambitious third track. March repeats the theme of moving forward boldly after facing your fears, but it adds a layer of extreme confidence. I have never heard 17 sound this almost self-serving here. I think it's no coincidence that the beginning of the Soul Be the Sun concert set list was what I consider to be their three most ambitious songs, Hot, March, and Hit. There is no doubt at this point that 17 is ready for world domination. The three love songs on the album don't seem like they would have anything to do with Hot, but all of them do connect to the themes of the album. The lyrics in Domino talks a number of times about falling, which might remind us of the lyrics in Darling, and Domino also uses the idea of a new world as a metaphor for falling in love, which will connect with Ash later. If You Leave Me has lines that talk about running without stop, even in the darkness, which can remind us of Hot and March. And also throughout the lyrics, we see 17's commitment, which is evident throughout the album. And even Bout You, which, despite being written several years ago, has some lyrics that talk about explosions that remind us of the imagery in Hot. The last two songs that we haven't talked about, Shadow and Ash, are particularly important to the meanings of the album. Just like Hot and March, Shadow is full of light, dark, sun, shadow imagery because the song centers around the idea of facing your inner darkness, your inner shadow, accepting the parts of yourself that you don't want others to see. I think Shadow's placement in the order of the tracks is really interesting because it comes after they have already declared their ambitions and said that they have faced their fears. Its placement in the middle almost suggests that accepting yourself and your darkness is sort of an ongoing process that you continue to have to do. I particularly like the lyric, "Baby, I'm a shadow of you," which seems to suggest that instead of thinking of our inner selves as just shadows or reflections of us, it's actually the other way around. Our outer selves are really a reflection of what we are inside. If Hot is the thesis statement of the album, then Ash is the concluding paragraph that puts together everything that came before and adds a whole new layer to it. The imagery in Ash takes us right back to the midday desert where we were in Hot, and so many of the same symbols reoccur. Ash also reiterates the theme of Hot, risking everything to move on and follow your dream. But Ash adds a new layer of meaning. Take a look at this line. I love the idea that just because you're taking a risk doesn't mean that you won't have another chance. I also like how the whole concept of Ash is that there's going to be some sort of destruction or something you have to give up that comes when you take a risk, but that nevertheless you'll be able to move beyond that and start fresh. A perfect message for the end of Face the Sun, an album which 17 has repeatedly said is a new beginning for them. Hot connects Darling, the promos, and the whole Face the Sun album and declares 17's ambitions to the world. Face the Sun is such a cohesive and thoughtful album. It's truly a joy to listen to. I can't wait to see what Sector 17 is going to add to it.